Hey guys, BlackCross here, and welcome to another vlog video. And you can probably tell just from on the bottom of the screen, I have a visitor here today, Grover here. You're actually seeing Grover for the first time since he's been groomed on YouTube. Last time you saw him, he was still a pup, he was still fuzzy and everything. But Delmar is not in today. He is hanging out with some of his friends, so I'm watching him. And if I don't watch him, he'll chew the living heck out of my wires and stuff. And if I don't keep him up here and leave him downstairs, he'll just start whining. So I figured, it's been a while since he's been in a video, so why not? But anyway, wanted to do a quick little vlog video. I say quick, but sometimes they take a little bit longer than it should. But for those that are interested in what's going on within the up and coming month, especially considering what month we're in now, which is June, and by the time this video gets released, we will literally be days away from E3 itself. Literally days. So, needless to say, a lot of people are already getting expectations out there. A lot of people are already getting their prediction videos up for E3 and stuff. I kind of already did that a couple of days ago myself. But everybody else is just now doing it. So, E3 of 2019. I still have a small expectations as to, like, how E3 is going to be, especially considering the fact that, you know, Sony won't be there. Microsoft, now there's, like, a word going around that Microsoft is going to have its own presentation right across the street from the E3 show floor, which is weird on its own. It's like, wait, so Microsoft is doing a presentation, but it won't be inside the E3 show floor. That's weird. So already it's looking like E3 is going to be a downhill slope from here. But I still think E3 does still have a chance to stand. You still got like individual companies like obviously Square Enix and Capcom and stuff like that. And so long as those game companies are still around, they will still be an E3 showcase every year still. There'll be smaller companies, obviously, but there will still be an E3. Now, of course, that being said, I still hold fresh to what I say about the E3 presentation and predictions that I've thought a couple days back. But there's been new trailers that are coming out, and some of these trailers are on two ended side. There is the meh side of thing, which they have no interest whatsoever, and then there are some games that have the woo factor, which means it has my heavy interest as of right now. I won't go into details as to what those trailers are, because keep in mind they are teaser trailers. We don't know much details other than that of what platform they're going to be released on. So chances are by the time E3 comes around, we will have more details coming out. Now, of course, you're probably going to be asking me, what type of video format am I going to do for E3? Because if you remember, when I first covered E3, I did like a separate part series of each individual press conference. And years later, I ended up doing like one whole video talking about E3 itself. And depending on what goes on in each press conference, which there won't be that much details when you think about it, I may just go ahead and just basically talk about it all in one go. So in other words, by the time it gets to the 11th, which is the last press conference, which is said to be Nintendo's press conference, I will do a coverage of all the games that have been showcased during E3. So there's that detail on that part. Now, of course, on to the streaming side of things. As of the timing of this video, we are still trying to beat Final Fantasy XII. We have one more Esper that we are going to get, which is So Dark, and then we will beat the game. Now, I would jump to Final Fantasy XIII, which would be technically the final Let's Play live stream video series that I would do, up to the point of where I will be doing nothing but highlight reels from Twitch itself. Now, of course, I haven't really uploaded a Twitch highlight reel since my last one, which was Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. But the only game that I've been playing, aside from Final Fantasy, was that of Breath of the Wild, which I do plan on doing a highlight reel of that. I just haven't had time to put together video highlight reels of Breath of the Wild, obviously. But in terms of like what's going to happen for Final Fantasy 13, we may have to take a break from it. Now, there's nothing wrong, it's just Delmar is using my he's using my multi-core. I call them multi-cores. I know there's a different term for it, but the component rather for the PlayStation 3, which I use for my Elgato and stuff like that. He is using that right now to where he can record footage for a game that he's going to be reviewing later on within the month. Now, of course, because of that, I can't just take that back from him because he'll be using it for quite some time. So there are two options with me. Either one, I go ahead and get me a new one, or I can try to get it to run HDMI. Now, for those that are not aware of it, the PlayStation 3 cannot be recorded through the Elgato by HDMI due to like a connection complication. I don't know what it is, and we've tried doing this a couple of times in the past, and it never shows picture on either the TV screen, much less the Elgato feedback on the computer itself. So I'm going to try to figure out how I can get it to run HDMI, because the end result is that if I get it to run through HDMI, it's going to be easier later on when I go into full-time stream mode. Now, of course, that being said, I only have, like, technically in terms of running consoles that I have in my room, I only have like 3 systems technically. But in the future, I would like to have a series of cable connected to a switchboard to where all I gotta do is press a button and it goes on to the next switch that I'm going to be using in order to play games and stuff. And of course, obviously in the future, I will begin a Nintendo Switch, so therefore I will have 4 different consoles in the future. And of course, I do have plans for other games of that nature, but that won't be until a later point in time. So I am going to be trying to experiment with HDMI cabling for the PlayStation 3, and by the time I get that figured up, we will of course go back and be playing through Final Fantasy 13 and mostly just beat it. Now, of course, 13 does not have much of a completion stuff itself. It mostly has like the Crystalia hunt quests and stuff like that, and that's about it, which we're not going to do all of them, obviously. We're not going to do all of them. We're going to do just some of them to where I can level up in that game. And in terms of like ultimate weapons, which is mostly to upgrade, we're going to skip that. There's no need to try that because, well, the final upgrade is a pain in the ass, and it's going to be a grind fest that no one should have to go through. But we will just beat Final Fantasy 13 because technically in terms of getting all of the summons, they get all the summons practically before you fight the, before you get to the final part of the game itself. So, naturally speaking, that one's going to be easy to go through. Now, of course, that one being the final full Let's Play of Final Fantasy, in terms of games that are going to happen next, obviously we're going to be playing through Final Fantasy 15, which is going to be mostly be a highlight reel, except for Episode Auden. I'll get to more details when we get to that point. But depending on what games comes out when, which obviously we're going to be dealing with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which comes out on the 18th of this month. Obviously later on this month we will be playing through that, so look forward to that. I may play through a little bit of Breath of the Wild here and there. Obviously, for those that don't know, I've been playing it on the days that I've been off, and I've been playing it for 3 hours at a time. And I feel like, for a game like Breath of the Wild, as big as it is, I figured 3 hours is a perfect length of time to get like a good amount of progression done when it comes down to it. Keep in mind, that game is filled with like 120 different shrines, and it's insane. But I love it regardless, so I figured, you know what, we'll just keep it that way. And we can actually feel like we're doing something, you know? But of course, another big question that's going on is what's going on in my personal life? How am I doing? How am I feeling and stuff? The good news is that I finally got this wisdom tooth out. You know, that's like the biggest thing that I could feel at this current moment in time. I'm so thrilled to finally have that out. And technically, in terms of major dental stuff, with the exception of like going to do like annual visits and stuff like that, in terms of like big time tooth problems that I've had, those are completely done and over with. I've had this done last year, if you remember, the cracked tooth that I had, and just recently got this wisdom tooth pulled finally, so now I am 100% done with all the major stuff until something else happens. We know stuff can happen all the time, but hopefully I can have a better time taking care of my teeth, and I don't have to worry about these two nuisances there at all, so it's going to be nice to have that finally done and over with. But to kind of go into detail about the tooth itself, what ended up happening, whenever I first went in there, they took my blood pressure, and they thought it was a little bit high, so they figured they'd wait. And the entire time I was waiting for them to check my blood pressure again, I thought to myself, I was like, oh gosh, please tell me it goes down, please tell me it goes down, I want to get this done now, I don't want to wait. It's like, the fact that I had vacation time specifically designated to recover after this, even though I didn't really need all of it, but still to a point I still used it regardless, I didn't want to wait any longer just to get it pulled, just because my blood pressure was a little bit high. It wasn't as high as it was whenever I last went in there, but it was still high regardless. It was like 150 over 90, so to them it was high enough to be concerned. But whenever they checked my blood pressure again, it went down, thankfully, so they said, okay, we can commence the process. So I was like, oh, thank God. So that was good to know. But the process itself took longer than the actual removal itself. So they basically injected 2 different injections into the wisdom tooth itself to where they can get ready to pull. And as they were, you know, checking it and everything like that, make certain it was numb and stuff, the guy said, make certain to raise your right arm if I feel any sharp pains. Sure enough, I did, so I raised my right arm. So, as to be expected. And so they did one more injection, and so by the time they went back in there again, I didn't feel anything. So then he said, okay, bring in the big tool. And I'm like, the big tool? So, this is what he had. Keep in mind, the tool was that small. Now, from my eye distance, it looked that small. But the bigger tool was like that. So, you think about it, that close to your eye, it looked humongous. So it's like, what the frick? And as he was going in there, as soon as I started to feel pressure, he was like, all done. I was like, what? Really? Sure enough, he pulled it out. Keep in mind, that was practically a dead tooth, okay? All that was left that was practically holding it at this point was the roots. So, needless to say, to finally get that done and over with, I was like, oh, finally. Now, that story out of the way, what about my foot? Because if you remember me mentioning, I mentioned of how I've had problem with my heel recently. And there are some good news to talk about. There's still some concerning issues that I still need to check in and stuff. I'll probably do that sometime later on within the month. But my heel, I can actually walk on it now, finally. I found some insoles that are like helpful when it comes to me walking on it, which is great. Not so great whenever, on occasion, I feel the shock pain that goes right through the heel itself. So, yeah, it's like I was doing perfectly fine one night after getting these insoles, and I was like, oh, this actually feels nice. I can actually work in these, you know? It's not that bad. All of a sudden, middle of the night, I felt that sharp pain go through my heel, and it went up to my back, and I was like, oh, not good. So, needless to say, I still am going to feel pain in that heel. I'm probably going to have to check in on something like that. But from the way it sounds from everybody else, I'm going to have to probably start getting injections for that foot. Now, for anyone who's even remotely been through that situation, or who knows anyone who has been, the injections themselves only work for so long. So chances are, after a while, they'll stop being effective, and I can't do that. I can't do injection, especially if it doesn't actually help, you know. It's one thing if it prevents it from ever happening and stuff like that, you know. It's one thing, but to have it to a point where you have to go in there continuously for the injections, I think it's like once every 3 months or so you have to go in for it, and after a while they even wear out, so it's like, ugh, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to try to like look into it to see if there's like a specific insole that's perfect for that particular situation. And if I can find it and just do that like on a monthly basis rather than an injection, because let's face it, depending on the injection itself, depends on the price itself, so I may be on the better half of just getting installs continuously rather than just getting injections. So we're going to try to go for the cheaper method, and the method that I can control versus me going to a doctor and telling her that, hey, my heel's killing me, type thing. So we're going to try to go for as long as we can without having to go through major medical situations and stuff. If I can control it, I'm going to try to do it. But that side is said. The internet side of thing, because that was something that I've talked about in the last vlog, was that I was going to get better internet. Keyword was going to get better internet. Now, we went in there, and the office location compared to where we live right now, we could walk to it technically. It is not that far away. It's surprising that we were right next to it practically almost. I would argue and say that it would only take us like a 2-minute drive, probably a 10-minute walk if we wanted to or stuff like that. So it wasn't that far away. So I thought to myself, it's like, if it's that remotely close, then surely to goodness we should be able to have access to the fiber optic internet connection, right? Apparently not. So I talked to them, and keep in mind they've only been around for 2 years, so it makes sense for their lack of audience being there that they haven't got the advantage point of expanding yet. But I talked to them, and I told them the address and everything like that, and I told them, I said, it's not that far, it's like right across over through there. And she was like, yeah, that address unfortunately is under just copper wiring still. And I'm like, are you serious? You're in the city limits. Usually the city limits is like the first place that they would want to concentrate on installation of the fiber optic stuff and everything like that. Unfortunately, they hadn't done it yet. They've done it in like different areas, but they hadn't done it for like all of the major part of the city itself. So and I asked them, I said, are you telling me that you haven't fully installed it completely yet? And they said, we're trying to get it everywhere. It's just right now it is a long process. And I was like, alright, so when do you think maybe it might be installed remotely close to where I live? And they said, just check back every 6 months and we'll keep you updated. I was like, okay, because the internet that I have right now is no better than what you've got currently going on towards my place. So I'm just going to keep the internet that I have right now. But should you guys have fiber optic connected to the place that I live right now, I will be switching. And they said, we will be glad to have you with us once we get to that point. And I was like, thank you. So they are very nice to talk to. Obviously, they are trying to get everywhere to expand their regions and stuff. And keep in mind, fiber optic internet. I mean, come on, already. You've got a better, powerful internet on the way that's going to be the same price that you would normally pay for the current internet that we have right now. So you think about it. Which would be the better outcome, more power, rather than same old stuff that we got. And while the internet isn't perfect, it's still good enough to where I can do just normal streaming, so we're still going to be doing the same amount of streaming like we have been in the last couple of months that we've been doing this. Actually, for the past year that I've been doing this, when I think about it now. But so nothing's going to change in that term, but once we do get to that point, I would like to expand the capability of my streaming being that of higher quality, obviously. Which, by the time we get better internet, I'll obviously be upgraded probably to a better PC by that point. Which I need to do an update on that, but with that being said, hopefully everything will collide perfectly for me. It will take some time, but we will get through it regardless. So, I think that covers everything that's going on right now for the month of June. Mostly the big stuff is going to be like E3 presentations and stuff, and then trying to get prepared to stream for Final Fantasy 13, obviously. So, for those that are wondering, that's kind of the ideal. So, after we get done with Final Fantasy 12, we will go into 13. It will take some time because I'm going to try to get HDMI recording to work for me. And if I can get that to work for me, then we will proceed on to the Final Fantasy 13 recording stuff. But we will mostly be recording or playing through Breath of the Wild. So, Anyway, though, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below how you enjoy my vlogging series. In particular, what type of games would you like me to play on Twitch stream? Let me know in the comments below, and I shall see you in the next video. And Grover will see you sometime later. So thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Say bye-bye, Grover. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.